Round Britain Quiz with Kirsty Lang.
Hello. Neither Northern Ireland nor Wales have been Round Britain Quiz champions for a few years now. And if 2023 is to be their year, then they will need a victory today. Last time Freya McClements and Paddy Duffy took on David Edwards and Mvanwi Alexander in April, it was a win for Northern Ireland. Let's see what happens today, and welcome back to all four of you. Before we start, and while we hand today's question papers out to the panellists, let me deal with the puzzle I set you at the end of last week's contest. The question was, which is the odd one out? And I gave you a racing driver's card game, Mrs. Routledge's flowers, a noisy sporting implement, some geometric flooring, and an assumed name. Well, the card game that has the name of a racing driver is Piquet. Mrs. Routledge is surely Patricia and her sitcom character Hyacinth Bouquet. The flooring is parquet, and the assumed name is a sobriquet, just leaving the noisy sporting implement, which might be a racket. And the end of that word is spelt the same, but pronounced differently from the others. Give yourself 6 points if you worked out all of those clues, and you can find the answer in a bit more detail on our web pages if you're interested. So, into the fray you go. Paddy and Freya, can you start off for us, please, with this question? Why and by whom might a winged reptile, a game bird, and a classical astronomer be initially welcomed to the circus? Why and by whom might a winged reptile, a game bird, and a classical astronomer be initially welcomed to the circus?
We think there may be something hidden here, or something silent that we need to bring out here. Well, Freya, if you want to...
So we think that the silent part that we're looking here is PT. I don't even know how you say that one. It's not part of a word. But
a silent P.
The silent P. So to explain a winged reptile, a pterodactyl, as in PT, etc., etc., etc. And I think there's a game bird, and again, I don't know how to say this, called a ptarmigan, Ptarmigan.
Absolutely right.
And that then takes us on to the classical astronomer.
The classical astronomer, I think, might be Ptolemy. And then, initially welcome to the circus, so we've got PT, so then we've got the greatest show on earth, P.T. Barnum.
Absolutely right. So let's just recap this. So why and by whom might a winged reptile, a game bird, and a classical astronomer be initially welcomed to the circus?
So they'd be initially welcome to the circus because they all start with PT, pterodactyl, the ptarmigan, Ptarmigan, Ptolemy, and then
P.T. Barnum.
To Barnum.
Yeah, and some interesting trivia there. The ptarmigan only has the PT spelling because of a mistaken assumption that it was of a Greek etymological origin. It's in fact from the Gallic tarmacan. Which doesn't have a P. So well done on that. That is 6 out of 6 to Northern Ireland, and what a cracking start. OK, Wales. Why might a scoundrel, a guider of horses, a cinnabar pigment, a number with 4 dozen noughts, and the singing of Welsh folk songs with a harp accompaniment all lead us to the king of beasts in the end? Why might a scoundrel, a guider of horses, a cinnabar pigment, a number with 4 dozen noughts, and the singing of Welsh folk songs with a harp accompaniment all lead us to the king of beasts in the end?
Well, perhaps unexpectedly, not unexpectedly, I'm going to start with Pennillion, which is the accompaniment of singing verses. One verse is a pennill, and more than one are Pennillion. So it's called singing Pennillion. If you didn't regard the double L as a separate letter, and you thought it was a little bit like the English letter L, which of course it isn't, it could lead you to lion, which is the king of the beasts. Cleon, on the other hand, is a boy's name, but we aren't looking for Cleons, I don't think.
Now, the cinema pigment we think maybe vermilion, which also has lion at the end, so a mercury compound, isn't it? And the guider of horses, a postilion, which in various foreign phrase books is undoubtedly struck by lightning every time.
A scoundrel, a great word this, rapscallion should be used more often, shouldn't it?
It's an excellent word.
It is an excellent word.
Yeah.
And that leaves us with the number with 4 dozen noughts. And I think this is ambiguous in a way because, if you like, there are 2 different naming systems for big numbers like this, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on. I think if we stick to this side of the Atlantic, it makes it easier for us.
It does.
Because I think that would be an octillion, which ends in lion.
That's right. So that's octillion, which in the UK traditionally refers to 10 to the 48. Well done. Let's just recap. This is why might a scoundrel, a rapscallion, a guider of horses, a postilion, a cinnabar pigment, vermilion, a number with 4 dozen noughts, an octillion, and the singing of Welsh folk songs, a pennillion, leads us all to the King of Beasts in the end. So they all end in Lion. And I'm going to give you 6 out of 6 for that. Well done, Wales. Okay, question 3 to Northern Ireland. This is time for some music, Freya and Paddy. And your question is the work of listener Simon Meara in Ashton Hayes, Cheshire. So I want you to listen to the following and identify which balletic tune would come.
Be used where there is life. Medium atomic weights are available. Gold, lead, copper, jet, diamond, radium, sapphire, silver and steel.
Okay, so you heard 4 bits of music there. So you need to identify them and guess which tune or song might follow. And the clue is balletic.
Well, fair play to Simon. This is a bit of a duel of a question. The first track we had was from Pearl Jam. It was Jeremy. So one of the classics of the grunge canon. The next then was a band from Liverpool, I think they were from there, called The Coral. The song was Thinking of You. The next one then was Kenny Rogers and Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town. And so we think that we may be dealing with maybe anniversaries here. These are kind of wedding anniversaries. This is Pearl followed by Coral, followed by Ruby, followed by, and we're thinking then maybe Emerald is the next one.
That was actually a theme from a TV series on ITV.
It sounded like a kind of a Jerry Anderson type thing.
It might be a little before your time. Perhaps it had Joanna Lumley and David McCallum in it. And
that was Sapphire and Steel. Was Joanna Lumley in it? So yes, because they mentioned Sapphire in it, so I kind of discounted it on the basis of that. So Sapphire and Steel. That was the theme tune for that. And so this is the order, kind of inexorably going towards Diamond, effectively, in terms of sort of milestone wedding anniversaries.
So we're looking. So it's Diamond. So any song with the word diamond in it. So Diamond Dogs, for example.
It's not Diamond. I think
not Diamond.
So we've got Pearl, Coral, Ruby,
Gold,
and then Sapphire.
Yep.
Gold, just gold.
The next one would be Gold.
It's Gold.
Right,
okay.
The 50th anniversary. And what balletic tune might that?
Oh yes, ballet. Oh yes, of course, yeah, because there'll be Gold by Spandau Ballet. Would be the most maybe prominent one.
Yes. Exactly. So they refer to wedding anniversaries. So Pearl is for the 30th anniversary, included by Pearl Jam. Coral is for the 35th. You got the band right, the Coral, the indie rock band from the Wirral, and the song is "Dreaming of You," which is from their debut album. And then it was Kenny Rogers' "Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town," and Ruby is the 40th wedding anniversary. Sapphire from Sapphire and Steel, that was the theme tune. That's the 45th. So the next one, because we're going up in 5 years, would be Gold. So I think you did very, very well on that one. Got to it straight away. So I'm going to give you 5 out of 6. Well done. So question 4 for Wales. What might be measured by a green engine, a composer who provided breakfast for Audrey Hepburn, an American writer of short stories, and the alleged original for Dracula. So what might be measured by a green engine, a composer who provided breakfast for Audrey Hepburn, an American writer of short stories, and the alleged original for Dracula?
If I say the single word inductance, is that enough? Can we stop now?
You are correct.
See, David knows all the measurements of everything scientific in the world, but I know the names of the trains in Thomas the Tank.
I thought you would.
So we think it might be Henry?
It is indeed Henry.
Yeah.
It was the green engine.
Inductance relates when you induce a voltage due to in process of electromagnetic induction. The inductance relates the magnitude of the voltage to the rate at which the magnetic field, if you like, is changing. So
this is in the SI system of scientific units. Do we know why electrical inductance is measured in henries?
It's named after an American scientist, Henry. I couldn't tell you his...
It was, you're absolutely right, 19th century physicist Joseph Henry. Who was the composer who provided breakfast for Audrey Hepburn?
Henry Mancini.
That's right, he wrote the music for Breakfast at Tiffany's.
O. Henry has slipped, I think, out of fashion. I think an excellent writer of short stories.
Yeah, his actual name was William Sidney Porter, but he was known as O. Henry. He also founded a periodical called The Rolling Stone about 70 years before the other more famous one.
Oh, right.
Okay, so that leaves us, who is the alleged original for Dracula?
Right. Now, I have a feeling that Dracula was another story, or the seed corn for it, if you like, came from the same sort of grotty winter in Switzerland, which generated Frankenstein for Mary Shelley.
Its origins lie in the West End of London.
Oh, right, okay. So Henry Irving, maybe.
Correct. Yeah. Because he was the friend and idol of Bram Stoker, who worked for him at the Lyceum in the 1880s. And it's generally agreed that the rather ambivalent relationship he developed with this egotistical and manipulative Irving was a key inspiration for the character of Dracula in Stoker's 1897 novel. But, I mean, well done. You got there straight away. The answer was Henry's. So I think that is... because I just had to give you a little bit of nudge on Henry Irving and Bram Stoker. So I'm going to give you 5 out of 6 for that. So the teams are neck and neck as we get to question 5. Whew. Northern Ireland. Why wouldn't it be surprising to find, one after the other, a teenager styled by Tim Burton, a mouse from the same pen as Paddington, and Crusoe's companion? Why wouldn't it be surprising to find one after the other? A teenager styled by Tim Burton, a mouse from the same pen as Paddington, and Crusoe's companion.
So we started this one at the end with Crusoe's companion, and we're talking about Robinson Crusoe in the novel by Daniel Defoe, and his companion on the desert island famously was Man Friday. So if you work back from that, the mouse from the same pen as Paddington, author of Paddington, Michael Bond, the mouse is Thursday. And if we work back from that again, the teenager styled by Tim Burton is Wednesday in the Netflix series about Wednesday Addams. So why it wouldn't be surprising to find them one after the other is because they're Wednesday, Thursday and Friday in the days of the week.
Spot on. I wondered whether you'd go for Edward Scissorhands with the teenager. But you're right. This refers to the Netflix TV series Wednesday, a fairly recent hit starring Jenna Ortega as Wednesday Addams, the daughter of Gomez and Morticia in the Addams family. And the executive producer is Tim Burton. It has all of his hallmark production designs. So, yeah, and Michael Bond, best known for creating Paddington Bear, but he wrote books about many other characters, including Parsley the Lion, guinea pig Olga de Polga, Monsieur Pamplemousse, and a mouse called Thursday. There were 4 books about Thursday published by Puffin in the early 70s. I think I remember reading them as a child. And then, of course, Robinson Crusoe in the 1719 novel by Daniel Defoe, who's been on an island for 25 years before he meets another living human being. But then one Friday, he rescues a man who's been held captive by cannibals who plan to eat him and names him Friday. It's a portrayal that's considered somewhat troublesome by modern standards, but there you go. Anyway, that is a 6 out of 6 for Northern Ireland. Vanwy and David, it is time for your music question. So I want you to listen to these extracts and decide, what have you got to be afraid?
Especially lush, delicious. Hello, little girl, what's your rush? You're missing all the flowers. The sun won't set for hours.
Dark in the city, night is a wire. Steam in the subway, up is a fire.
So you heard 3 bits of music, and the question is, what have you got to be afraid of?
This question. The second one sounded as if it could be Stephen Sondheim, but not something I recognised.
It's not Sweeney Todd, is it Sweeney Todd?
No, it's not that.
No.
Then.
There was a lyric in it that was quite a giveaway, actually.
Oh gosh.
Hello, little girl.
Oh, so is it Into the Woods? It is Into the Woods.
So it
Yes.
is Sondheim. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So the wood, the dark.
So-
The first one. That's not the theme that was used for the Thornbirds, is it?
There is a theme tune, but it was from a 1990s film, an Oscar-winning film, actually. And you probably
very
would have seen it at the
familiar.
time.
Oh, is it the one where it's got a wolf in it, hasn't it? So the question is, who we're afraid of is
The wolf,
The wolf.
right.
Yeah. And what is the film called?
There's
It had Kevin Costner
Winston
in it.
Wolfe in.
Dances with Wolves is what it was. My children cried so much at the end, I've tried to wipe it from my memory. So that's Dances with Wolves, Into the Woods. So what we've got to be afraid of is the
is
wolf.
the wolf. So what? I can't
So
even
can
remember
you
what
guess the
third
final
one
bit
was.
of music?
It's not from Pulp Fiction or
It's Wolf Alice. Is it Wolf Alice?
No, earlier than that. It was a 1982 hit. You will know it. Well, you certainly know the band.
right.
This is where they want to hear it again, isn't it? Yeah.
Is Wolf in the title? Yeah. Howl Like a Wolf. Is it Howl Like a Wolf?
Close, like a wolf, but... And the first...
Oh, is it Hungry Like a Wolf?
It is.
Right,
Yes.
okay, well
And
done,
the band
well
are...
done.
In Excess? Hungry Like a Wolf. Hungry Like a Wolf.
Yeah, it's like I can see Paddy's absolutely
Yeah.
kind of like, it's desperate to answer this.
19... What did you give me a date?
1982. And they were pretty huge at the time.
Oh,
They were
Depeche
well known.
Mode.
Okay, Paddy, put them out of their misery.
I'm sorry, folks. Duran Duran.
So I wasn't far off with Depeche Mode. I was
You
going in the
were,
right
you
tempo.
were, you were close. You were close. Absolutely right. So that's one of you had to be afraid of. The music you heard was John Barry composed the theme tune to Dances with Wolves. The second one was Stephen Sondheim, as you correctly identified, from Into the Woods, and it was Hello Little Girl, which is sung by the wolf. And then the final bit of music was Duran Duran, Hungry Like the Wolf. So I think probably, because I had to give you quite a few clues, 3 out of 6 for that one. So, another listener's question idea for you. This was devised by Tim Riley in Islington in London, and we thought it was very clever. In what ways do the following pairs resemble Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels? Judy Garland and Lord Debon, Winnie the Pooh's particular musical invention and a heavy-duty vehicle, champagne and a traditional player, Jeeves's creator and Maria's admirer. So in what way do the following pairs resemble Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels? Judy Garland and Lord Debon, Winnie the Pooh's particular musical invention and a heavy-duty vehicle, champagne and a traditional player, Jeeves's creator and Maria's admirer.
So we're thinking maybe rather than getting a taxi out of here when we leave the RBQ Cluedo Mansion this year, we might, instead of a taxi, we might get a big van dressed up as a dog because Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels were the stars of Dumb and Dumber, and they were the dog groomers in Dumb and Dumber, and all the rest of the pairs follow in that suit. In fact, they all rhyme.
Mm-hmm. So if we take our starting point as Dumb and Dumber, Judy Garland, her original surname was Gum, and
then Lord Debon is the former Tory politician and fast food impresario John Gummer.
Winnie the Pooh's particular musical invention was, of course, I'm not going to do it, but it was to hum.
And then the heavy-duty vehicle, favoured by Arnold Schwarzenegger, among others, is the Hummer.
No, I thought you said, for a moment, I thought you were going to say we're going to drive away from RBQ and Hummer. Well, the BBC's in enough trouble.
Don't think the budget stretches to that.
Yeah.
The champagne we're looking for is Mum.
And then the traditional players, the mummers were like a kind of... sort of like ancient kind of, they would go from sort of door to door, sort of house to house, sort of performing kind of plays. In fact, my father used to do it back in his callow youth.
And then Jeeves' creator, P.G. Wodehouse, obviously, who was known as Plum.
And Maria's admirer, even, get ready to tear your Nazi flags, folks. It's Christopher Plummer.
In the role of Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music. Absolutely right. 6 out of 6 there for Northern Ireland. Very impressive performance. OK, Wales, you're going to finish with a listener's question too. David and Mavanwi, this is from Andrew Connell in Cardiff. How might William Golding, J.R.R. Tolkien, Iris Murdoch and Joanna Trollope all be said to contribute to Victor Hugo, although not in translation? How might William Golding, J.R.R. Tolkien, Iris Murdoch and Joanna Trollope all be said to contribute to Victor Hugo, although not in translation?
Well, we think this might be starting off with a massive red herring, in that the immediate temptation is to notice that the first two authors have written works which begin with the phrase "Lord of the."
But we think that's a red herring.
You are correct, that is a red herring.
We think we're going upwards rather than... we think we're talking about vertical protuberances in buildings.
Or parts of a church.
Yes, it's architectural, absolutely. Yeah.
So J.R.R. Tolkien, my specialist subject, would be The Two Towers, second volume
of Lord of the
Rings.
William Golding wrote a novel about the building of a building of a cathedral called the Spire. Then you think there's an Iris Murdoch novel.
Well, I thought there might be a novel called The Tower, but maybe I'm wrong.
Joanna, now Anthony Trollope had the Barchester Towers. Now I wonder.
Did she write a book called The Choir?
She did.
Yeah.
Right.
So did Iris Murdoch then write a book called The Knave, or The Transept, or The Clear Story, or something like that? So we're in that type of...
You are.
Yes.
Right. So therefore that leads us to Victor Hugo and one particular novel which in French refers not to its most famous occupant but to the church itself, Notre Dame de Paris.
That is absolutely right. So
they would contain those architectural features.
Yeah, this is all about the titles of novels, the first 4 of which could be or are parts of a cathedral, and the last is the name of an actual cathedral, which you rightly identified as Notre Dame de Paris. The French title of the Victor Hugo novel that we know in translation is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Do you want to have one last guess at the Iris Murdoch novel set in a medieval abbey, community of nuns? Something that
cloisters?
The cloister. No. Altar. Apps.
I could have thrown maybe Hemingway in here.
Oh, God.
instead.
Bells. The bells.
The bell tower. The bell tower. Or just the
Well,
bells.
it is The Bell. It was a
The bell.
1973 novel.
It's written
yeah.
down here, actually.
You wrote it down.
I
Oh,
wrote it
no.
down, but didn't say it, so that's no good.
Well, well done. You did incredibly well. Yeah, we could have. I mean, we could have included Ken Follett as well, couldn't we, have in this list with Pillars of the Earth? So I think 5 out of 6 because you identified everything apart from Iris Murdoch's The Bell. Well, it's almost time for this cathedral of general knowledge to fall silent, but not before I give you the final scores. Northern Ireland have won once again with 23 points, so just 1 point off getting the maximum score. And Wales have come second with 19, which is the same score as when you last met. So thank you all for a lot of fun. Both these teams have one fixture left this season, and after that we'll be able to take stock of who finishes where in the league table. Join us next week for Northern Ireland against the Midlands, and perhaps you can be thinking about this question, which I'm going to leave you with in the meantime. Can you join up Professor Harold Hill's opening number with an American TV detective series of the 1960s, a shellac disc, and the Cameron Highlanders leaving Gibraltar? Good luck with that. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.